You know the feeling when you're walking up to one of your most anticipated coasters at one of your most anticipated amusement parks. You're very excited, because this is one of the rides you were looking forward to the most during your visit. You walk up towards the ride and don't see it running with any trains cycling, and suspense and nervousness builds up about whether the ride is currently up or down. Before you know it, you get to the ride and you see a sign that says, "This ride is temporarily closed," or delayed for maintenance. The attendant at the front says, "Sorry, we're down for mechanical issues. We don't know how long it'll take." Occasionally, you see a sign that says that the ride will be closed for the whole day. You then get flooded with feelings of disappointment. This is what happens to people who look forward to going on certain coasters, but they just so happen to be one of the most unreliable of them all. There are several coaster manufacturers that have gained the reputation of manufacturing extremely unreliable rides, such as RMC, SNS, and most of all, Intamin. There will be a lot of coasters from Intamin on this list, as they are the head of the pack when it comes to unreliability. I am not hating on Intamin, as they are my favorite coaster manufacturer, but they do suffer in the reliability department. In this video, I'll be counting down the top 15 most unreliable coasters in the US. The coasters that have had the most downtime, the most complex technical issues, the ones that break down most often, and are hard to get on in general. Just a note, there might be some unreliable coasters that have flown under my radar, and I might just not know about their unreliability. So if any extremely unreliable coaster is not on this list, feel free to ask about it or bring it up in the comments below. Not all rides on this list will be from those three manufacturers though. And no B&M, you are not immune to appearing on this video. Number 15. Nitro at Six Flags Great Adventure. Speaking of unreliable B&Ms, the number 15th spot on this list goes to Nitro at Six Flags Great Adventure. This may come to a surprise to some, because although Nitro is not the type of ride that has very frequent breakdowns throughout the day, when it's closed, it stays closed for days, sometimes even weeks. There have been multiple instances where riders have been stuck on the lift hill and had to be evacuated, and the main issue Nitro has been having is with its lift motor. Last year in 2021, Nitro was having problems with its lift motor and was even closed by the state for inspections of the lift hill that ended up taking several days. And just by coincidence, there was also a restraint malfunction reported by one of the riders that same summer of 2021. The ride then stayed closed for a few days until inspectors found there was nothing wrong with the ride. It then reopened as normal with 3 trains. Fast forward to summer of this year, and Nitro was closed for several weeks due to some lift motor problems, but I don't know exactly what was going on. It was closed for that long while it was waiting on a part from B&M. Although it did reopen recently, it's never good when a major coaster is down for that long in the middle of the season, especially at a park with a very lengthy off-season. Number 14. Pantheon at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. Unlike Nitro, Pantheon hasn't had too many occasions of the ride being down all day, except that I have heard it happen only a couple times due to LSM issues, but it's a rare occurrence. The issue with Pantheon is that it goes down all the time throughout the day, and also has a lot of delayed openings. Aside from the ride going down all the time due to winds that exceed 15 miles per hour, I've heard that the ride stops at the launch track and riders are evacuated from there almost every single day. This leads to hours worth of downtime in order to be able to recover from the evacuation. On the rare occasion that Pantheon does not get stuck on the launch track, it still goes down for hours at a time during the day. I spent 2 days at BGW, and on my first day, it was open in the morning. It then stopped at the launch track and riders had to be evacuated. It was then down for 3 more hours and then went back up again and was running consistently for the rest of the day. The next day I went, Pantheon was running consistently the whole time I was there, but I did leave at 3 PM so I didn't know what happened afterwards. But from my experience, and from what I've heard from multiple different enthusiasts, Pantheon does deserve the number 14th spot on this list. Number 13. Jersey Devil Coaster at Six Flags Great Adventure. Although Jersey Devil is now a lot more reliable than it was when it opened, I still need to put it on this list for the extended amounts of downtime and mechanical complications it had during its first operating season. When the ride first opened, its pacing was flawed, and it broke down so often during the day, with several days of the ride being down all day for multiple days on end. This was due to unreliability problems with the chain lift. For a large chunk of July, Jersey Devil was closed for inspection by RMC due to issues with Stunt Pilot. It then reopened in the beginning of August, and then closed again after a few days for the exact same inspections by RMC, and then finally reopened again at the end of August. Since then, the ride has had multiple breakdowns with the ride sometimes valleying, getting stuck on the chain lift, or getting stuck on the mid-course brake run. For the 2022 season, this ride has been running a lot more reliably, but it still has its breakdowns here and there. In my hypothesis, I think this coaster has so many issues because it's RMC's first attempt at a constant moving station with a total of 4 cars, and a mid-course brake run that is supposed to regulate all of those block sections. Number 12. Xcelorator at Knott's Berry Farm. Since this is an Intamin hydraulic launch coaster, this should not come to a surprise. From what I've heard, Xcelorator has been closed for an extended period of time this year, with no answers as to when and if it'll reopen. In its earlier years of operation, there was an incident where the launch cable snapped and caused 2 people to be injured. It was even caught on video. On top of that, this ride has had a lot of downtime in the past few years. This one is expected, due to the fact that it's an Intamin and is known for its unreliability. Number 11. Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure at Islands of Adventure. I am going to admit that this ride has been extremely reliable recently and isn't breaking down even a close amount of times as it did during its first year of operation. But I do have to put this ride on the list due to how unreliable it was when it first opened. This is an Intamin, and it does include 7 launches, a switch track, and a drop track, which would have a lot of downtime by default. When it first opened, it was known to be one of the hardest attractions to be able to experience, considering the extremely lengthy 3-hour wait times and how much the ride faulted and broke down. In the beginning of its course of operation, they even set times that the ride would not be available so they were able to fix every single kink and maintenance defect. Fortunately though, this year it's been running super reliably, and I even heard that Rip Ride Rocket even breaks down more than Hagrid's now. I've only gone there recently, and I haven't seen it break down once throughout my visit, but I still have to put it on this list, solely because of the sheer issues it was having when it first opened. Number 10. Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. Steel Vengeance isn't only unreliable in the sense that it has frequent breakdowns. It's had multiple mechanical failures and incidents throughout its lifespan, and on top of that, it has suffered some major structural issues that look like they need work every day. On its opening day, 2 trains lightly bumped. At one point, there was also an incident where a tire fell from the brake run into the queue line. Now, that's just a straight no-no right there. Due to its structural issues, it typically spends hours down on a lot of days just so maintenance could work on all the structural flaws, in order to be able to safely operate the coaster. During my 2-day visit to Cedar Point, I noticed the following pattern. First, the ride would be down for hours in the morning while maintenance continued to fix structural issues. Then, it would go back up for about 10 to 20 minutes, and then it would go down again because there was issues with the trains. They would then take that train off, and then the ride would go back up with only 2 trains. It would then go down a few more times later in the day. This ride has had so many different issues it suffered from, and it more than deserves a spot on this list. Number 9. Steel Curtain at Kennywood. I've never been to Kennywood, so I haven't experienced or heard closely about Steel Curtain's unreliability, but all I know is that it was plagued with extended periods of downtime on its opening year. It spent multiple days closed for mechanical issues, and when it was open, it regularly ran 1 train. The ride was also closed for the entire 2020 season as they were trying to get new seatbelts, but I doubt that was the only reason it was closed, because getting new seatbelts doesn't take that long. Also, on top of that, at the beginning of the 2021 season, the ride valleyed during a morning test run, where the temperatures were very cold. The ride has still had lots of downtime since. From what I've heard, it's usually up almost every day, but it still suffers from a lot of structural and mechanical issues. Number 8. The US Aero Launch Shuttle Loop Coasters. This pick is pretty self-explanatory. There's no nitty-gritty full in-depth explanation I need to go into about why this is so unreliable. This ride stays closed almost every time anybody goes to either Frontier City or Ilitch Gardens. Diamondback at Frontier City and Sidewinder at Ilitch Gardens are so unreliable because they always stay closed for days on end, and it's very rare that an enthusiast went to one of those parks and saw the Aero Shuttle Loops actually in operation. When these coasters are in operation, I hear them breaking down all the time, but I don't know what exact issues they're suffering from. I've heard Airtime Thrills say that he goes to Frontier City all the time, and almost every time he went he said that Diamondback was closed. I don't know the exact amount of times he went, and it was actually open, but from what I know, it was very few times. Like I said, I don't know what exact technical issue these Aero Shuttle Loops suffer from, but the reason it deserves a spot on this list is because of all the times I know that Diamondback at Frontier City and Sidewinder at Ilitch Gardens are always closed. When you have a coaster that barely even operates, that's just when you know it is very unreliable, and that it is not a good sign for all of your park operations. Number 7. The Vekoma Giant Inverted Boomerang. For the Vekoma Giant Inverted Boomerang, I'm putting this in one category because there are barely any operating in the US to this day. Six Flags New England just got rid of Goliath, and the only one remaining in the US is Aftershock at Silverwood Theme Park. Aftershock has been up and running pretty consistently, but I still hear about it breaking down a lot and having some reliability issues. But Goliath at Six Flags New England was a reliability nightmare. It was almost closed every day I went. It was very rare to see it actually operate. It would either operate for a few minutes and then it would shut down again, and very rarely ever open up that same day again. There were also some safety issues with the ride. Sometime in 2016, the cable snapped on one of the towers, and that sparked concern for a lot of people that it would get removed. It does seem that a week later they got it back up and running. As of 2020, this ride has suffered its last straw and was closed for the entire 2021 season. Without any word from the park, they removed it the next year in 2022, and that plot of land has been now sitting dormant. Vekoma is usually known for its reliability throughout the coaster community, but for some weird reason the giant inverted boomerangs seem like the exception. I don't know if it's the cable or some other ride system, but Vekoma's reliability does not seem to matter with the giant inverted boomerangs. Number 6. Kingda Ka at Six Flags Great Adventure. You might be surprised that Kingda Ka appears very low on this list in terms of coaster unreliability, but for some reason, this season Kingda Ka has been quite reliable for its type. Intamin hydraulic launch coasters are notorious for poor reliability, and everyone knows what's been happening with top Thrill Dragster, and how it's at risk of being removed from Cedar Point. Although Kingda Ka breaks down all the time throughout the day, and has had a few days this season where it was down all day, it's been a lot more reliable than it was in recent years. It still breaks down all the time throughout the day, but those breakdowns don't last that long. Some of them get resolved in less than an hour. With that being said, Kingda Ka still deserves the number 6 spot on this countdown because of its downtime and unreliability due to the fact that it's a hydraulic launch coaster. There were some reliability issues with it this year though. At one point, it was having technical difficulties the entire time of Coaster Power Hours that they sent a painfully slow launch out, and the train only made it halfway up the top hat. So this ride still isn't perfect, and still has a lot of issues, and that's why it's taking the number 6 spot on the countdown. Number 5. Maverick at Cedar Point. It's very sad that I had to put Maverick at the number 5th spot on this list, because Maverick used to be one of the most reliable Intamins, and one of the most reliable coasters at Cedar Point. I have no idea what happened, because Maverick is now one of the most unreliable roller coasters and is definitely the most unreliable coaster at Cedar Point, excluding top Thrill Dragster. And I just said something, because rides at Cedar Point break down all the time and have very poor reliability. I've seen lots of Reddit posts about Maverick being down all day, and during my 2-day visit to Cedar Point, Maverick was down for most of the day on my first day, opened up for 10 minutes in the afternoon, and then shut down again for several hours and finally opened back up in the evening. Apparently it also went down 30 minutes after opening in the evening, but I was not there to see it for myself. The ride is so unreliable that the person at the front desk giving the Fastlane passes had to give us a warning that Maverick will be down most of the day and will only open for a few minutes at a time and then close again. That's not a very good thing when you're actually able to predict how unreliable a coaster is going to be. I don't know what happened, and what issue is driving Maverick to have so much downtime. My guess is that it has something to do with the launch heating up. On my second day though, it was up for most of the day, and there was a short 10-minute delay in the morning, 10 minutes after it opened for the day. At this point, it is very sad to say that Maverick has become even more unreliable than some hydraulic launch coasters, including Stormrunner and Kingda Ka. Number 4. Alpine Bobsled at Six Flags Great Escape. I have never been to Six Flags Great Escape, nor have I seen a POV or experienced the Alpine Bobsled roller coaster. But from what I'm hearing, this ride stays closed for 3/4 more times than it stays open. This ride has been closed on most operating days, and it is very rare to see it operate. This coaster's closures are so bad that the Great Escape app lists it as closed by default, even if it's currently running at that time. It's very sad to see how a lot of these bobsled coaster models are having a lot of issues, and if this continues, and Alpine Bobsled is removed, the bobsled coaster model will be close to becoming defunct. Number 3. Sandy's Blasting Bronco at American Dreams Nickelodeon Universe. I have gone into significant detail about Sandy's Blasting Bronco's problems, unreliability, and how much it has been closed all its time operating at the park. Sandy's Blasting Bronco is a very troubled roller coaster due to its fast LSM launches and the complex turntable, all made by Intamin. After everything else opened with the park and Nickelodeon Universe, this ride sat there dormant until it reopened in 2020 with the rest of them all after COVID. And then it had another period of time of extended closure when it was closed for 8 months, all the way from October 2021 all the way till May 2022. Although it is technically operational right now, It faults so often during the day and often stops in the middle of the launch track and rolls back. After the ride faults for a number of times, maintenance shuts it down and it stays down for a large chunk of the day. It also closes for multiple days even during its course of operation, due to technical issues. The website will then list the ride as closed, and it will usually reopen a day or two later after the technical issues have been resolved. A lot of people deem Intamin's unreliability to have to do with cable lifts and hydraulic launches, but it really seems like Intamin also struggles with their LSM launch coaster model. Look at what happened with Maverick, Pantheon, and Hagrid's when it first opened. Premier Rides and Xcelorator seem to have figured it out in terms of LSM launch reliability, but it looks like Intamin has some things to figure out still. I also think the turntable might be contributing to some of Sandy's downtime due to its complex system and the fact that it's connected to the LSM launch system. Number 2 should not come to a surprise to any, and it is Lightning Rod at Dollywood. This ride's unreliability history is so deep and complicated, and it has so many timelines and moments of closure for different reasons each time, so it will not be worth it for me to go into every reason why this ride is unreliable and what it has closed for each time. All I can say is that this coaster has had so much downtime, an unbelievable amount of downtime. Fellow coaster YouTuber Canobie Coaster tried to ride Lightning Rod while visiting Dollywood, and he tried 3 times, and it was only open once for him, with the 2 other times it being closed. From what I've gathered, most of the ride's issues have to do with the LSM launch supplied by third-party company Velocity Magnets. It has also had some tracking problems, and half of the wooden track was replaced with RMC steel iBox track due to the roughness that it was having with the wooden topper track. Since it opened in 2016, it has spent more time closed than open. It has also had many months of being closed on end. Everyone picks on Intamin for its unreliability, but it really seems like RMC has almost had the exact same amount of reliability issues as Intamin. Look at what was said about Steel Vengeance in this video. Also look at Jersey Devil when it first opened. And now look at Lightning Rod, the coaster that most enthusiasts deem as the most unreliable they've ever seen. But there is one more coaster that I find more unreliable than Lightning Rod. And that is the one and only Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point. Why do I even have to explain how unreliable Top Thrill Dragster has been over its years of operation? There have been so many different incidents with this ride, including the most recent incident where a metal flag plate from the train hit a woman in the face, causing her to be injured and need private care for the rest of her life. This ride has since been closed for the 2022 season, and many people are speculating that Cedar Point will remove it for the 2023 season due to its unreliability and string of incidents they've had to deal with Top Thrill Dragster. Not to mention that it has so much downtime. This ride breaks down so much that enthusiasts have started to call it Top Thrill Downtime. Kingda Ka is the exact same ride model as Top Thrill Dragster, and the launch track is a lot longer, which theoretically should create more unreliability problems. But for some reason, Top Thrill Dragster just has so much more downtime and technical issues than Kingda Ka. On my first trip to Cedar Point in 2018, Top Thrill Dragster was closed for the first 2 days I was there, and on my 3rd day there, it finally opened in the afternoon and then went down again an hour later, and I don't know if it went back up, because I left right after that. There was also another incident a few years ago, not sure exactly when, but a cable snapped and injured a few riders. The ride then opened back up a few days later as normal. These are the most unreliable coasters I know of. Once again, if you know of any other coasters that are extremely unreliable that did not make this list, please mention it in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.